Here are the top stories for today, October 7, 2020. Malacanang says Cayetano's move to suspend House session is not illegal. The first phase of the national broadband program will be rolled out soon. DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara says no one is spared from Philhealth prosecutions. And Adopt a Tribal Family will be launched next week. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Malacanang said House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano's move to suspend sessions until November 16 amid the speakership row is not illegal, but an astute political move. This after Cayetano forced the early suspension of a session and approval on second reading of the proposed 2021 budget last night. With the House now in recess, Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco would not be able to call for the election of a new speaker until House session resumes in November. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque in an interview said that for what it's worth, he thinks we have the experience of Speaker Alan Cayetano because he has dealt with the same rules as he is not only on his fourth term as congressman, but also as a two-termer senator. Meanwhile, Representative Lito Atienza of Buhay Party List claims he was forcibly muted by the Secretariat and could not post an objection to the motion to pass the General Appropriations Bill. Roque said it was not the first time such happened, whether or not they are on Zoom or on live, as mics may be muted by the House leadership. Roque stood by his earlier remarks, saying that the president would no longer interfere in the speakership row as it is an internal matter of the lower house. In case you missed it, here are the headlines hogging the limelight. President Rodrigo Duterte wants to destroy all confiscated shabu in a week.
I want all the shabu, residual or otherwise, however minimal, destroyed, the whole of it by next week. You have so many days to do it, 1 week. Do it in 1 week. Destroy and get specimen.
President Duterte also admits he once ordered for a discreet probe into extrajudicial killings.
And the NDF are out to destroy the very government under which they are enjoying the blessings of democracy. They invent stories about being harassed, killed, oppressed. Wala naman kaming nakikita at wala namang dumadating sa akin. And this extrajudicial killing, they've been harping for many years. Truthfully, nagdududa rin ako. And there was a time when I conducted a discreet hearing kung bakit.
And lastly, President Duterte wants all then nearly expired medicines to be released as soon as possible.
Hiningan po namin ng panig ang DOH at sinagot naman po kami ni Undersecretary Vergere. Ayon po sa kanya, ang expired na gamot daw na hawak ng DOH ay umaabot lamang sa 30 million pesos. Bagamat meron silang mga 1.2 billion na mga overstock or slow-moving or idle pero hindi pa po expired. At meron silang mga around 1.2 billion na near expiry. So ang mandato po ng Presidente sa DOH, lalong-lalo na yung mag-expire na, pakidistribute na po ng hindi masayang at yung mga overstock at slow-moving naman po, ilabas na po natin sa ating mga warehouse ng magamit ng ating taumbayan.
The government's National Broadband Program, or NBP, is expected to save millions of funds for the first year of implementation alone. The program aims to accelerate the deployment of fiber optic cables and wireless technologies and improve the overall internet speed and affordability all over the country. According to the Department of Information and Communications Technology, the National Broadband Program, or NBP, which will initially be deployed in remote areas, will significantly cut government spending on internet services. From the average spending of a medium-sized government office of 35,000 pesos per month for 100 Mbps, the internet service provided by the NBP will only cost 5,000 pesos per month. The ICT Secretary Gregorio Honasan said the first phase of the NBP will be activated by the end of 2020. President Rodrigo Duterte told Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco that he had the right to run as House Speaker. In a palace briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Velasco sought for the president's approval to run for speakership during their meeting on Monday night.
Well, I cannot give you more detail other than humingi po ng permiso si Congressman Lord Alan para tumakbo bilang speaker, at ang sagot po ng presidente, quote, "Karapatan mo yan, sang-ayon sa kasunduan ninyo kay Speaker Alan Cayetano," end quote.
Asked if Duterte's statement meant that he was giving Velasco his blessing to pursue the term-sharing deal.
Ayaw ko na pong mag-annotate. Yan lang po ang pinasabi sa akin sa taong bayan. At I think people can make their own conclusions. No?
Roque said Duterte has decided to stay out of the House leadership conflict, insisting it was an internal matter of the lower house. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said he will try to discuss with National Intelligence Coordinating Agency Director General Alex Paul Monteagudo the accusations that allegedly shared misleading posts on his personal Facebook account. Monteagudo was earlier grilled by the Makabayan bloc members during House deliberations on NICA's proposed budget for 2021 for sharing posts that targeted progressive groups. Kabataan Representative Sara Jane Elago said Monteagudo's post tagged members of the Makabayan party list bloc as communist terrorists stealing public funds to fund terrorism. Roque said he knew too little about the post to make further comments. He said if progressive groups were terrorists, then cases can be filed against them under the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020. Facebook earlier took down more than 100 fake accounts that targeted activists. The Philippine Red Cross said it is working to make COVID-19 testing in the country affordable and inexpensive for Filipinos. PRC Chairperson and Chief Executive Chairperson Senator Richard Gordon said they are working to bring down the COVID-19 test cost. He said this is also to help the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation to save money. COVID-19 testing in private hospitals cost about 4,000 pesos, while some hospitals charge over 10,000 pesos if an individual needs to get the results immediately.
No-compete pa namin. Pag nakuha na namin yung permit sa DOH, sa saliva test, magmumura yan dahil nasa expert panel approval na yan.
Gordon added that right now, PRC is studying a type of reagent that can do 3 testing and even bring down the cost to between 1,500 to 2,000 pesos. Meanwhile, they are also studying the saliva test in coordination with the University of Illinois and the University of the Philippines to make it faster. Gordon said the PRC has done over 1 million tests, where he cited the efforts and dedication of the staff, medical technicians, and volunteers of PRC.
At ngayon natutuwa ako na batiin sila sapagkat dahil sa kanila nakalipon tayo ng 1,003,754. Yes, the highest in the entire country. And we're higher by 700,000 sa susunod sa amin na nagtetest. Kami nasa top 10, number 1 kami.
Still to come, DOJ Secretary Bernardo Guevara says no one is spared from Philhealth prosecutions. And women former leaders lauds President Duterte. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. On to the issue of Philhealth, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said he believes President Rodrigo Duterte would not prevent the prosecution of anyone in his cabinet if there is no clear evidence of wrongdoing. Guevara's reaction comes after President Duterte said he sees no reason to charge Health Secretary Francisco Duque amid irregularities in Philhealth. Guevara said the DOJ will simply continue what it has been directed by the President to do, which is to bring any and all lawbreakers at Philhealth before the bars of justice. He said he views the President's statement as an expression of trust and not of exoneration. Last week, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, formally endorsed to the Office of the Ombudsman the complaint against former Philhealth President and Chief Executive Officer Ricardo Morales and other senior officials, including Executive Vice President Arnel de Jesus, Senior Vice President Renato Limshaco, Senior Vice President Israel Francis Pargas, and Vice Presidents Gregorio Rulloda, Imelda Trinidad de Vera, Lolita Tulyao, Gemma Sibucao, and Lailani Padua. The Department of Justice is set to order prosecutors to prioritize the resolution of drug cases. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said prosecutors will be told to complete the requirements under the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act, or RA 9165, for the immediate destruction of seized narcotics. His statement came after President Rodrigo Duterte directed law enforcement agencies to destroy seized illegal drugs, including shabu, by next week. Under Section 21-4 of RA 9165, trial courts are required to conduct an ocular inspection of the illegal drugs and paraphernalia within 72 hours from the filing of the criminal information. Afterwards, these items have to be destroyed through the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency within 24 hours after the inspection. Last July, the Supreme Court ordered lower court judges handling drug cases to immediately inspect and order the destruction of the seized or surrendered illegal drugs held as evidence. Private educational institutions whose operations were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic have yet to issue notices of closure. The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, on Tuesday said schools that close down must notify the DOLE on the number of workers that will be affected, and they have to explain to us the reason for closure or dismissal. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III, however, assured that they are ready to provide financial and livelihood assistance to displaced workers through the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, or CAMP. Bello said teachers who would be retrenched are also entitled to separation pay. Under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, the government would allot 300 million pesos for the grant of subsidies and allowances to displaced personnel, as well as part-time faculty members of educational institutions, including universities and colleges. Two women farmer leaders in Caraga region expressed elation with the recent Pulse Asia survey, which showed President Rodrigo Duterte received the highest approval rating of 91% in both trust and performance ratings. Leonora Mila, manager of San Isidro Upland Farmers Multi-Purpose Cooperative in Agusan del Norte, described President Duterte as a leader who understands the situation and who also knows how to make smart solutions. For her part, Nenita Dalayan, president of the Balite Chicken Growers Association in Surigao del Sur, said women in rural areas are among those who benefited from different programs implemented by the government. Both Mila and Dalayan said Duterte's programs and projects have created significant impacts to the lives of ordinary people, especially in the countryside. Dalayan's group received government intervention through the Special Area for Agriculture Development Program of the Department of Agriculture last April 2019. On the other hand, Mila's cooperative is one of the successful cooperatives in Agusan del Norte, assisted by the Department of Agrarian Reform. In our business news, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez said the country must continue to reopen business activities to bring back jobs and the vibrant Philippine economy. Lopez said gradual and safe reopening of businesses would bring back the vibrant economic activities and add jobs that will re-stimulate demand to revive the industry sector. The latest survey of the World Bank, the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, and the Department of Finance states there are firms in the Philippines that are uncertain on when to resume their operations, as well as their outlook on employment and sales. Out of about 74,000 surveyed firms, 40% reported to temporarily suspend their operations, and 15% said they will have to close permanently. About 45% said they are unsure when to reopen their businesses. The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, in Davao City warns lending and financing companies to follow fair collection practices for their borrowers. The SEC made the statement in line with the newly passed Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, more popularly known as Bayanihan 2, which provides a one-time mandatory 60-day grace period to borrowers in settling their debts during the health crisis. However, the SEC also urged borrowers to manage their loans properly by paying their debts if they have the capacity despite the reprieve. Aside from the grace period, the Bayanihan 2 states that these loans may be settled on a staggered basis without interest on interests, penalties, and other charges until December 31, or as may be agreed upon by the parties. Up next, Sagada tightens its rules on visitors and returning residents, and MINDA is set to launch its Adopt a Tribal Family. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The municipality of Sagada in Mountain Province further tightened security protocols on the entry of people to the town. Sagada Mayor James Puoten said they are now enforcing a mandatory 14-day quarantine for anyone entering the municipality. Currently, Mountain Province has a total of 23 cases with 7 active cases, while 16 have already recovered. Only the towns of Sadanga and Barlig remain COVID-free. Puoten also issued Advisory Number 24 on October 5, reiterating the protocol and specifically mentioning areas in Mountain Province with COVID-19 active cases. The advisory also said that returning residents to the province must first coordinate with the Operations Center prior to their scheduled travel. Persons arriving in Sagada between 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. the following day with no prior coordination shall not be allowed entry until proper coordination is made. Authorities have traced and subjected to swab tests at least 90 close contacts of newly confirmed COVID-19 patients in Mati City. More on this and other news from the provinces from Chris Mundo.
At least 90 close contacts of the two latest confirmed COVID-19 cases in Barangay Matiao, Mati City have identified and have undergone swab tests. City Information Officer Ben Jason Teshorna reports that the swab test result is expected to come out on Thursday. Meantime, the incident management team decided to forgo their initial plan to institute a Purok lockdown where the two patients reside and instead intensified their contact tracing. The city of Mati has 12 active cases while 73 have recovered from the disease. Meanwhile, the Department of Health is now looking at the possible local transmission of COVID-19 in other areas in the Caraga region. DOH 13 Director Jose Liacuna Jr. said the possibility of transmission in other unnamed areas is based on the increase in COVID-19 cases recently recorded by the agency. Last week, DOH 13 confirmed the local transmission of the virus in 7 more areas in the region aside from Butuan City and Bislig City in Surigao del Sur. The DOH 13 also announced Tuesday the 33 new COVID-19 cases in the region, 28 of which were considered local transmissions and 1 death. In Zamboanga City, the Department of Education said 10 of its 11 personnel who contracted COVID-19 have already recovered. 10 of the personnel who have recovered have already reported back to work, while the remaining 1 is still receiving treatment. The affected workers were infected in August this year and not during the distribution of learning modules to the students. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
Task Force Bangon Marawi assures that its major projects in Marawi City's most affected area are on track despite issues in procurement and implementation. More on this from Christine Lynn Viajante.
Rehabilitation of major projects in the most affected area of Marawi continues amid the implementation of modified enhanced community quarantine in the city. The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development Chief of Staff Zyril Carlos personally inspects the progress of each project.
We're closely monitoring the progress to make sure that they are within the timetable. And I asked the foreman if they are within the schedule, and they said yes. That's good news.
Carlos clarified that it took the agencies 2 to 3 months to start their projects due to the procurement process under Republic Act 9184 or the Procurement Reform Act, reason why the full blast implementation commenced just July of this year. Aside from public utility projects, Carlos also visited the mosques to be repaired with the help of private donors.
We already issued the checks for mobilization of the 3 contractors for the 3 mosques. So it's not just a memorandum of agreement. Now it's already a project.
Meanwhile, during the hearing of the Committee on Appointments, TFBM Chairperson and DSHUD Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario reaffirmed that the rehabilitation of Marawi is right on track and will be finished by December of 2021. This was validated to the committee by Marawi City Mayor Attorney Mahulgan Damra.
I would like to agree with the pronouncement of Secretary Del Rosario regarding the completion of the projects in the most affected area. With our strict monitoring together with the Task Force Bangon Marawi, I'm pretty sure that this will be done on the timeline given by the national government.
For PNA Newsroom, Christine Lynn Viajante of PIA Iligan City Information Center.
The Mindanao Development Authority will lead the launching of the Adopted Tribal Family Program in Barangay Gupitan, Kapalong Town in Davao del Norte on October 12. Secretary Emmanuel Piñol said at least 150 families from the far-flung village will be the first beneficiaries of the program that aims to provide decent homes, sustainable livelihood projects, education for the children, and basic services. During the launching, Piñol said initial assistance will be given to the beneficiaries, which will include farm tools and seeds, as well as food supplies and clothes. The Adopt a Tribal Family program comes less than a month after MINDA officials engaged members of the Ata Manobo community. The tribe, which was discovered deep in the forests bordering Davao del Norte, Agusan del Sur, and Bukidnon, had never been reached by the government and was controlled by the New People's Army. In our 4 news, health experts in the United States acknowledge that airborne transmission can spread the novel coronavirus. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, said that the novel coronavirus can linger in the air for minutes to hours after an infected person is no longer present. It said that the virus may be able to infect people who are further than 6 feet away from the person who is infected, or after that person has left the space. The CDC, however, noticed that documented cases of airborne transmission are comparatively rare, but these have occurred in enclosed spaces that had inadequate ventilation. Transmission also sometimes occurred when the infected person was breathing heavily while singing or exercising. Data continues to indicate that transmission more normally occurs when an individual is in close contact with someone else who is infected. The World Health Organization reports that around 10% of the world's population may have already been infected with COVID-19. WHO Chief of Emergencies Dr. Mike Ryan said that Southeast Asia continues to see a surge in cases, with Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean region showing an increase in deaths. Meanwhile, the situations in Africa and the Western Pacific are more positive. Ryan said among the activities needed to reduce exposure, infection, and mortality are good governance, robust policy, coordination, financing, access to data and research. Coherent strategies, access to health care, and access to the tools to fight the disease are also needed. Earlier, WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus noted that there are almost 35 million cases of COVID-19 now reported to WHO, and more than 1 million people are said to have lost their lives. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Malacanang says Cayetano's move to suspend House session is not illegal. The first phase of the national broadband program will be rolled out soon. DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara says no one is spared from Philhealth prosecutions. And Adopt a Tribal Family will be launched next week. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day, stay safe, everyone.